Hello and welcome here to another edition of Best of the West, a National League West podcast here with Blake Street Banner. I'm your host, Skyler Timmins, running it solo once again this week. Kenneth had some things pop up, so we'll hopefully get him back next week. But otherwise, you've just got me and a wide view of what's going on behind me. You can hopefully see my little homies in the background, my elephant, my bobbleheads, the terrifying Tin Man or Roof Man from the old Salem Kaiser Volcanoes, who were the Giants' old, I think, single A affiliate or rookie ball affiliate out in Oregon several years ago. Got a little Majin Buu action back there, my Captain Rex helmet, all kinds of good stuff. So you can always play, if you get tired of looking at me or listening to me, you can just kind of play with what can I see in the background of what's in my room. But appreciate everybody that'll tune in or listening to this on YouTube or listening to it later on your favorite podcasting platform. Fun times to be had here this evening. Lots to talk about. A lot of money being thrown around in the National League West today. Some extensions. We'll get into that along with figuring out who else could be on deck in the National League West. Three of the other teams, who can they pick up on some extensions in the near future? But first off, top of the show here, answering the question that you see in the headline: which team loses first? Both the San Diego Padres and Los Angeles Angels, or Dodgers rather, Los Angeles Dodgers off to fantastic starts here to begin the season. Everything's just working out. They've got the pitching down, the offense is doing its thing. And coming into this episode that we're recording here on this Wednesday night, the Padres did end up winning, so they are 7-0 on the year. The Los Angeles Angels, I keep calling them Angels, the Dodgers. Los Angeles Dodgers, currently bottom of the third. They're playing in Los Angeles against Atlanta. They're down 5-2. Tommy Edman did just hit a 2-run homer, so he's trying to keep him in the game. Plenty left to go there in Los Angeles and see if they can pull it out on the back end and make the comeback in classic Dodger style. But that's the question. Both teams off to a hot start here in the National League West at the top of the division. Who loses first? And so far, Los Angeles, maybe, depending on what happens the rest of this game, it could be them. But already before the show, we had chat coming from Norm saying, I'm a Dodgers fan, and based on the schedule, it is likely Los Angeles. If they beat Atlanta tonight, so far it's not so good for them. A decent-sized if. They go to Philly, Philadelphia Phillies, who have now won the series against the Rockies. They are off to a good start here this season. San Diego sweeps Cleveland. They then play the Cubs, plus Roki starts Game 2. So it's interesting what's happening here with the Dodgers coming out of the gate pretty strong, like they typically do. They played well out in Tokyo. They come over into this series to start in the season. Things have been going well for them offensively. They're getting it all done, but on the back end, offense is still finding its rhythm. But all the heavy hitters that you'd expect are off to a good start. Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, who we had talked about. Do we need to be worried about the weight loss and the illness? Mookie is fine. A lot of his home runs that have come lately have been go-ahead home runs, so he's got that clutch gene. Michael Conforto is actually doing pretty good. He's been batting in that 4 spot roughly for the Dodgers. Will Smith doing his thing. Tommy Edman, nice surprise there in that lower half of the lineup. Bottom third of the lineup, there's a lot left to be desired. Max Muncy, Kike Hernandez, Andy Pajes. Yeah, there's a lot to be desired. Freddie Freeman, I think he slipped in the shower and hurt his ankle, so he's out for a little. So they're not firing on full cylinder. They're not going at 100% right now. But you always like what you're seeing from the Dodgers. Surprisingly, here Blake Snell here on this Wednesday getting roughed up a little bit by the Braves. He's given up 5 runs on 4 hits. None of them have been earned, so some ugly defense from the Dodgers. 3 walks and 1 strikeout. So it's typical stuff out there for Blake Snell, where you're going to see a lot of walks, but he'll get the punch outs. And hey, it's just the 3rd inning. But yeah, as it comes down to it, it's nice to see the Dodgers. Yeah, they're coming out. It's their best start since 1955, I believe. That magical run back in the 50s. One of their best starts. No, it's one of the best starts by a team that's just won the World Series, off to a great undefeated start to begin the year. So the Dodgers, just everything going right for them to start the year. But no, a little lapse here this evening in Los Angeles, facing off against the winless Atlanta Braves. And how about that? And a winless team taking on the undefeated team and handing them their first loss of the year. It'd be pretty pretty interesting. I'd find it pretty funny. So you see all that with the Dodgers, what they're doing, still their thing. They're still figuring things out. No, Roki Sasaki's still trying to find his rhythm here in the big leagues. No, there's a lot more holes there, or just growing pains here to start the season. They're a little banged up, not firing on all cylinders. So then you look over at the Atlanta Braves or the San Diego Padres. They are kind of at a full strength right now. They're getting good pitching. Dylan Cease still doing his thing. They're off to a perfect 7-0 record, extending a historic streak to the season. They keep doing it right, which is kind of surprising. We talk all about the drama with the team off the field, the ownership and everything. But the Padres are coming out and they're still playing ball. They're winning ball games. And they're keeping pace with the Dodgers. It's just the 5th time in history 2 teams have started the same season with 7 straight victories. And since divisional play began in 1969, it's the first time they've come from the same division. So it's hopefully going to be a classic back and forth between these 2 teams at the pony race here out of the gate, coming out strong. And the Padres were benefited by 4 victories over Atlanta on opening weekend, who have been off to a horrendous start for them. And it keeps getting worse. Injuries and their big free agent acquisition popped for PEDs. He'll be out for 80 games. All those things. So the Padres, they drew a better draw to start the season, but they've done all. They've pitched. They've slugged. They're stealing bases. They're pretty much perfect on defense. Everything is going right for the Padres, who were coming out with a hot hand. And so the way things are going, it feels like, the Padres are going to keep it rolling. It's really going to come down to this Wednesday night, see what the Braves can do. But you never count the Dodgers out. So keep an eye on that scoreboard if you're listening to it here on this Wednesday night. See what the Dodgers do against the Braves. But interesting stuff coming out of those 2 teams off to hot starts. Dylan Cease still getting it done on the mound. He just here on this Wednesday, 6 1/3 innings of 1-run ball. A lot of good things going on for him, and still plenty left to go for them. And we'll touch on the other big thing that they did when we touch into the main topic stuff here this evening. But one other thing I wanted to touch on here, probably one of the weirdest things that's going on in the league right now, that it's kind of hard to believe that it's actually true type of thing, where you look across the league, wrong league standings, all those things. Well, they used to have one of the best ones, but among teams in Major League Baseball, when it comes to pitching, the team with the lowest ERA among starters in the National League is one Colorado Rockies, which I'm sure was on everybody's bingo card coming into the year. But through their 5 games, they are a 1.61 ERA in 28 innings of work. I believe this does incorporate tonight's outing by Kyle Freeland, where he went 6 2/3, gave up 3 runs on 9 hits. I believe that's incorporating his stats from tonight, but a very surprising first run through the Rockies rotation. The runner with a 4-man rotation right now, we'll see how that develops because Austin Gomber was scratched from his rehab start in Albuquerque tonight in AAA. He's dealing with shoulder soreness, so we'll see. Maybe is it time for Chase Dollander to get the call up? Who knows? Potentially, or they'll just slide Bradley Blaylock over and call up a reliever or something like that. But a very surprising development that it's the Rockies that they've only given up 5 total runs as a starting rotation, which is the fewest in baseball, followed by the Tampa Bay Rays, who've given up 6. Their rotation has given up just 1 home run. They have 19 strikeouts. Yeah, they're not a high strikeout squad, but just 3 walks. They've given up 20 hits. Yeah, they're getting bailed out by some defense, specifically Antonio Senzatella, who gave up 9 hits in 3+ innings. A weirdly historical start by him in Tampa Bay, but was still scoreless. No, they were one of the last teams to give up runs by a starter over that opening weekend, along with the Chicago White Sox, oddly enough. So they tossed 28 innings. Yeah, it's among the fewest innings in baseball. They're probably around middle of the pack, but in that lower part. Yeah, they're 26th in innings pitched. But still, you're getting your guys going. Roughly everybody's gone at least around 5 innings, 5-6 innings. A solid start to the season by the Rockies starting rotation, and you hopefully can throw in a Bradley Blaylock or a Chase Dollander in there later, and it keeps that rolling. But you're seeing that big 3 of Senzatella, Marquez, and Freeland, all of them looking better. Senzatella's still himself, where he's throwing those fastballs, he's getting pounded for them, giving up base hits. But they're still going out there throwing strikes, which is a huge thing. There's not a lot of walks in that group. Ryan Feltner, yeah, he got dinged for a home run in his first outing in the first inning, gave up a 2-run shot, but then he settled in, went 6 innings or so. Still looked good, pounding the zone. And so that's what's going to help. That's really the only main highlight for the Rockies in general right now. The bullpen has been roughed up quite a bit. The offense is ice cold, unless your name is Hunter Goodman. Other than that, not a lot to write home about if you're the Rockies. But to see that starting rotation come out and be effective, it's a silver lining, to say the least, of these veteran guys coming out being healthy. No Herman Marquez coming out, making the first start in Philly. Really encouraging. Happy to see him back out there, really in his first real legitimate start. And yeah, he had the start last July before he was sidelined with the stress thing in his elbow. But he's out there fully healthy, and he looked good. Looked good, like the Herman of old. But yeah, it's absolutely wild. The Colorado Rockies lead the National League in starter ERA. Their first time through the order. Again, they are just running with the 4-man rotation, which is really, really interesting. And here's a good question here from Ryan Terletsky over on YouTube in the comment section. You can join the conversation here live during the show. Asked, don't you feel like the Rockies almost have to trade starting pitching for hitting at the deadline? The farm is interesting, but not loaded with top-tier talent, arguably more loaded with starting pitching talent at the minor league level. Absolutely. It's hard to figure out what exactly the Rockies would do, because, yeah, a lot of the guys to be excited about in the system, it's a lot more pitcher-oriented. And I think that's something the Rockies would maybe be a little bit more hesitant to trade from, because they know how hard it is to draft or how to acquire pitching, which is really tough. But it's that hard thing where, what a world we live in, where you would kind of have the opposite. Several years ago, we'd have the exact opposite question here of, shouldn't the Rockies be trading some hitting for starting pitching and such? Yeah. And so it's, at some point, yeah, they need to, it's more like trying to just figure out what trades to fill up holes in general. Because it's a team that holds prospects close to their chest. They love their prospects. They love their guys that they draft, they develop. Now, have they made some weird decisions in these last couple of years? Yes. Why did we trade Joe Rock for Greg Jones, only to then give Greg Jones like 6 plate appearances and then get claimed off waivers this at the end of spring training this year? Who knows? But at some point, yeah, look at what talent you have and what is excess. Why do we need this many outfielders? No, you could probably find some top-tier talent by trading away some prospects at some point. Does that include some starting pitchers? Absolutely. Does it include position players? For sure. It's looking for the right deal of what can improve this team as a whole on both aspects. But absolutely, and thank you for the question, Ryan. Hopefully I answered it good enough. But the answer is that offense just needs something, and they got to figure something out either way. But if Herman or any of these starting pitchers should be on that block at some point this year, if they're doing well enough and teams are calling, pick up that phone and wheel and deal, figure out what you can do and turn that over, because what good is Kyle Freeland on this team if he's pitching really well, or Herman Marquez? How valuable are they to the Rockies really this year and moving forward when you have the Chase Dolanders, the Carson Palmquist, the Sean Sullivans, any number of other guys, the Gabriel Hughes moving their way up? Can you really afford to keep holding on to these veterans that you had in 2017 when they were rookies? So, yeah, but what a weird start. About the only good thing going for the Rockies, that starting rotation at the moment. Unfortunately, you can't win ball games with pitching alone. You need some offense, and the Rockies do not have that right now. But moving into our main thing here, and like you said, call me Astro. Keep an eye on this Dodgers lineup here, or this Dodgers game tonight. But yeah, still 5-2. I'll keep it on to my left, and 5-3 now. So Dodgers crawling their way back up. We'll see. We'll see how far it gets by the end of this episode. But moving into our main topic here, here's the big news coming out from the day. The day started, probably the biggest news of the day, starting with the San Diego Padres making a splash and extending outfielder Jackson Merrill to a 9-year, $135 million contract, which, not too shabby. A nice, solid move here to lock up a star center fielder who a lot of people argue should have been Rookie of the Year last year. Between him and Paul Skeens, either one was the right decision. But I can see really that heavy argument of why you would want to pick Merrill there. As a pitcher that played the entire season there, had some really big hits for the Padres, played a key role for him in switching to the outfield as well. But it's a huge move by the Padres, who it feels like, like Ash just says, it really feels like a steal. And it's get that 9-year extension. You're getting this young guy, early 20s, and you've got him now through the 2034 season, and with a club option for an additional year. And so a big part of it is, what does this extension mean for the Padres? Because if you've watched this, Kenneth and I talked a lot about what are the Padres doing? What does their future hold? Because it feels like that window is closing rapidly. Well, this feels like a move by A.J. Preller and the Padres saying, no, we refuse to have that window closed. We're going to keep our young guys. No, we're going to lock up this guy because he's a great player, and we're committed to still building up this team. And it still remains to be seen, but this is a move, a contending move for a team still wanting to win. And so, yeah, there's a lot of the questions with free agents and other payment increases for other guys. So, yeah, you lock up a Jackson Merrill maybe before he does things that eventually get him to a point where he would be too expensive for this team. Like when they locked up Fernando Tatis Jr. Get him early enough where then, hey, he's locked up. We got a nice, maybe cost control. There'll be a lot of incentives there. I think there's like $30 million in like plate appearance incentives per year where it can jump up, that contract even higher, or something where you can get up to close to $200 plus million dollars by the end of it. But now you get this guy who's under contract through the entirety of his 20s. One of the game's most exciting young outfielders. Converting there was a top prospect for him. And he's just hit the ground running and off to a great start here for the season. Yeah, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you try to extend this guy? And so it locks up in that they're committing to him that, okay, this is a guy that's going to be a future of our organization moving forward. A.J. Preller said at Wednesday's press conference, we're continuing to add to the core group of guys that are going to bring a championship to San Diego. And so that's the hope, that you can get a guy like him and that he can be here for years to come and be a catalyst to help keep a core intact and hopefully win in the near future, because time's running out at some point on some guys. But he's surrounded by quite a few. You've got Manny Machado, Jake Cronenworth, Xander Bogaerts, Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove. They're veterans on long-term deals. You got Tatis Jr. still there. And then there's other top prospects on their way up, like Leo DeVries and Ethan Salas. So there's a foundation being built, and this is a move by the Padres to lock up a guy who can be a leader, one of the young leaders on this team, a face of the franchise even, of the next generation. So you've got both 21-year-old Jackson Merrill, you've got 26-year-old Fernando Tatis Jr., both with the team locked up through the 2034 season. If you're a fan of the San Diego Padres, you look at that Padres lineup, that's a couple of good players that are in their primes for quite a while still, on that team for still many years. Jackson Merrill saying it'll be funny looking at him, talking about Tatis Jr. in right field every day, knowing that it's going to be like that for a really long time. Tatis been just like me. He's a kid playing the game. And so it's cool because then he can help this team contend, hopefully towards the future. But then it's interesting to see a prospect raised up by the Padres and the fact that he's been a success story for him. More of a homegrown guy that they bring up, and he's able to find success, and they're able to then lock him up. With the way that they've operated over the last several years, where so many prospects have come and gone, have been wheeled and dealed, the fact that you have a guy that can stick around and now be a critical piece of the puzzle for years to come, that's pretty special for the Padres. Like, this is our homegrown star. We didn't have to go out and trade a bunch of guys to get him. This guy came up from our system. And, for a team, I think that can be a good confidence booster then just into the system, because players in the system can look up and see Jackson Merrill and say, hey, that's a guy that was drafted by the Padres. He's worked up the system, and now he's doing those awesome things in San Diego. Maybe I can do that too. No, it's possible. If I do good enough stuff, I can maybe be there. Or I'll get packaged up in a deal and sent somewhere else, but that's neither here nor there. So it's pretty cool that he's able to do that. And so then he can establish himself in franchise history. Just a really, really cool deal for him, where he can stick around in San Diego. That's going to be a long time. And then as he ages, this will be throughout his 20s. It's 2034. He can still hit free agency at some point and still be relatively young enough where he can set himself up nicely for another free agent contract. Looking up stuff here on my computer while I talk. Usually I can do this while Kenneth is talking, but I have to think and talk at the same time. So yeah, there are $30 million in plate appearance escalators that pushes salary earnings to $165 million. Each time he gets to 500 plate appearances in a season, he adds $1 million to his future salaries for the 2030 through 2034 seasons. The deal can max out at $204 million and includes a $30 million club option for a 10th season that can be converted to a player option. The club option becomes a player option with a top 5 finish in MVP voting, while a top 10 finish is also an escalator. So he was scheduled to reach free agency after 2029. So this extends their control by at least 5 years. So yeah, this feels like a nice steal by the Padres. And we saw a lot of those come today. The Red Sox extended Christian Campbell, another young 20-year-old, off to a strong start in the season. The game's young stars, I think the Atlanta Braves kind of paved the way for this with those years where they would just lock up these guys on team-friendly deals. They're keeping the talent. These guys are going to get paid earlier and still kind of team-friendly. But now we look at Jackson Merrill. Yeah, it's looking at, you go to roster resource and look at the salary payroll, and next year, $2.1 million, then it's up to $7.1 million, $9.1 million. It roughly goes up by $2 million until 2029 to $11 million, and then it jumps up to basically a free agent contract, $21 million in 2030, and then from there onward, at least up to 2031 that they show here on the payroll chart. Heck of a steal. If he keeps it up and keeps churning out the seasons like he did last year and off to the hot start this year, and it's a pretty dang good steal by the San Diego Padres. Nice savvy move with some of the bad contracts we've seen them hand out. This is one that you can applaud and say, that's a pretty good contract for one of the young rising stars in the game. And you'll lock him down there in center field for quite a few years. Eventually, maybe if you need to, you can move him into a corner. But he's young. He can carry through there. He's only, 22 years old, roughly. He can handle center field probably for the duration of that contract. But yeah, heck of a signing there. Jackson Merrill, sticking with the Padres, 9 years, $135 million through 2034. Good on him. Could go down as one of the greats in San Diego Padres history. But yeah, let us know in the comments your thoughts on the signing of Jackson Merrill and how you feel this helps out the Padres going forward. Pretty dang good move. But they weren't the only ones to make an extension signing, because kind of a more surprising one. A couple of the youngsters getting signed today, but not for the Diamondbacks. They go out and they announced a new 7-year contract with their second baseman, Ketel Marte. It's a reported $116.5 million contract guarantee. That is $64 million in new money. He was already under contract for 3 seasons, but is now signed through 2031. He can opt out of the deal after the 2030 season, where there will be at least $11.5 million remaining, and he also has $33 million in escalators and performance bonuses. He has a 5-team no-trade clause, but he'll get 10-5 rights early in the 2026 season. Contract takes effect this year and breaks down as follows: $14 million in 2025, $5 million is which is deferred, $15 million in 2026, $12 million in 2027, and then $20 million in 2028, and $22 million per season between 29 and 30. Each top 3 MVP finish would boost the following year's salary by $3 million. It'd go up by $2 million if he finishes between 4th and 7th. And the deal also includes $2.5 million annually from 2026 through 31 in plate appearance incentives. Convoluted, gets in that weird, just figuring things out and bonuses and deferring and restructuring and all that good stuff. But kind of a surprising move. Is when you've seen that come from Ketel Marte. He's 31, 32 years old. Now, that extends him out quite a while. But still, for another staple there in the in the Diamondbacks core, he's been a key piece for them for several years. And it's if they were gonna, they already did the extension for Corbin Carroll. He got us in. They make the big signing with Corbin Burns and his whole convoluted contract. This one seemed a little more interesting, especially because you already had those couple of years of control. And as we've seen across the league, it's hard for some of these contracts. As these guys get older, sometimes the production naturally may decline. And so you start to worry a little bit of, well, what can Marte continue to do in the later part of that contract? You pay him up front when you already have him under control. Yeah, that's great. But this feels like them spending money on a player that, after the season, with so many questions for the Diamondbacks after this season, they're gonna have to figure out a lot of their starting rotation, plug in some other holes, in their roster and in the bullpen and all that stuff. With so many questions and needs, perhaps after the season, you could take this money that they're factoring into Marte now. You maybe could have spread that out a little more to help shore up your foundations and address needs in the coming seasons. And so, no problem awarding your guy, but it also is saying he was already under contract. Did you really need to extend him further in order to do whatever? And so that's probably the more interesting part of it. So, I don't know. I like Marte. Had a phenomenal season last year. Second MVP voting. Second or third. He was up there. But it's just the interesting thing, because I don't know if this was necessary. Because Marte, all-star MVP candidate. He earned his bag. Rightfully so. But they do get a little bit of that relief with $46 million in deferred money. So that maybe is the part where they can then shuffle things around and use that money for something else. But as General Manager Mike Hazen said, the process has been an ongoing conversation for the last few weeks. He expressed a desire to want to continue to stay here. We've kind of talked to him about it, kind of went back and forth on what the terms would look like. Certainly, there's some advantageous terms in there for us as well in terms of the deferred compensation, some of the money that got moved around a little bit to increase our flexibility for 2025 as we move through the season. So there were benefits for us on the front end of that as well. We came to a mutual understanding of what that could look like, and things happened from there. This is the third extension that Marte has signed with the D-backs when they acquired him from the Mariners back in 2017, which is one of Mike Hazen's first trades. His most recent one was a 5-year, $76 million pact he signed in 2022 that ran through 2027 with a club option for 28. So you can understand, there's some sentimentality of here, and it's nice that they can then restructure a little bit to figure things out. We'll give them a little bit of flexibility, so they could add around. Marte enjoys being there. That's good. He is a phenomenal player, and so just like with the Padres signing Jackson Merrill, this is one of those moves by the Diamondbacks of, this is a guy that's been successful here for us. He's a staple here, MVP candidate, all-star. You can hold on to him for several years then and make that commitment of, this is a Padres team dedicated to wanting to compete. And you need guys like Marte to be a leader like that. Now, will he stay at second base the entirety of his contract? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe at some point, maybe he starts to transition to first base a little bit. Who knows? But like Mike Hazen said, this gives us more room in terms of this year to see what happens as we go through the season. We certainly made a big investment at the beginning of the year, and this will give us that added flexibility as we move through. So, the team trying to be savvy and open up some money. The Corbin Burns signing was pretty big. They have Corbin Carroll under contract. They're sitting at an estimated payroll of about $195 million. So now Marte's earning $14 million this season and $15 million in 2026. And then it drops down to $12 million in 27, and then back up to 20, then 22 through 2030. Opens up some flexibility, so we'll see what the Diamondbacks can do with that, but it's not a terrible extension. You want to keep a guy like Marte around. But we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't backfire on him down the line, and know that he ages with grace over the course of this contract. And he could definitely stay at second base. But with a Jordan Lawler moving up, who knows what this means for his future, because they also made the signing of Geraldo Perdomo. So they've extended up. They've got Corbin Burns. They signed him, and then they extend Marte. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is under contract for at least one more year. Got Corbin Carroll signed through 2030 at least. Justin Martinez they signed to an extension. He's through 2029. Perdomo through 29. And then you've got Brandon Pfaadt. He's also under that extension through 2030. So they've locked up a lot of guys for these, at least through 2030. Quite a few guys. And you look at that roster and guys coming up, it's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward for this Padres. This is a discussion we'd have in like several years, but a team in a win now mode still, where trying to think towards the future to give them some flexibility specifically for this season. So, you get down to a deadline, they're in a good spot. Could they go out and get somebody? Could they go out and get a Sandy Alcantara? We'll see. But a lot of interesting moves there. But Ketel Marte sticking around with the Diamondbacks through 2030, potentially 2031, on a nice new 7-year, $116 million extension. Good for him. We'll see how it works out for him. But that brings the question here: is what's the rest of the division going to do? Because we've already seen the Dodgers sign up a bunch of people. They've spent a ton of money over the years, and especially during the offseason. But who would the Dodgers end up signing to an extension, or a big extension? Who would be the best candidate for them? And you look at their roster. Yeah, there's a lot of guys here that they've already pretty much done that to. Most recently, they had signed Tommy Edman to that 5-year, $74 million extension that runs through 2029. Will Smith was signed to that big extension as well last season. Other than that, everyone else has mostly been those free agent signings as well, running through things. So it's a question of, who could they extend? And just looking at their roster, it's hard to find a guy that sticks out that's not an old veteran type of thing. But I could see them extending a guy like maybe a Dustin May. He's not necessarily young, but he's kind of one of those guys where you could, depending on how he does this year, if he can really show that he's fully back, that he's healthy, he's effective, and they think he'll be a key contributor in that rotation for years to come. He is scheduled to be a free agent after this season. So maybe if they see enough, they can. But obviously, I think the biggest, the biggest answer is Roki Sasaki, because they signed him for the international money and thing. He'll be in the pre-arbitration at one point. After this season, because I think there's some stipulations on how it works with the international free agent and the money they could give to him, all this stuff. At what point then, when the time comes, are they able to then lock him up to some sort of extension and give him the money that they feel that he's earned, or that he would have earned, that everybody values him at? Roki Sasaki, off to a rough start to the season. And like we said, he's a young guy, 23 years old, trying to figure out the adjustment over to Major League Baseball. He's made 2 starts, 4 2/3 innings. He has a 5.79 ERA. Big part of that. He's struggling with his command, 17.36 walks per 9 innings. So yeah, he's struggled with the walks a little bit. 9 walks against 5 strikeouts. He's got a wild pitch. He's given up just the 3 runs on 4 hits. He's faced 26 batters. But he hasn't worked much. He's still trying to just find his way, find his command and everything. Yes, they have the luxury of being able to send him down to the minors to work on things as needed. But as the season goes on and he gets more comfortable, I'm sure those numbers will improve. Where you get to a point then you can sign him to the extension that you want to do. And maybe get him up into one of the more team-friendly deal. I'm sure they'd be able to work out something there with a little bit more team-friendly like they did with Shohei, maybe even Yamamoto. But then you lock him up, that's a solid rotation for years to come of yet another star that the Dodgers are able to extend on him. I'm sure they'd figure out how to defer even more money on that one. I'm trying to look up here of when can the Dodgers extend Roki. So it ties into like the bonus pool money and things. They're figuring it all out. And so, but eventually in some situation, I feel like when the time is right, they'll look at Roki and figure out a long-term extension for him. If he can settle in nicely and really figure out where he is, because they go through all that trouble moving money around and everything to sign him. You're not just gonna let him walk away for nothing at some point. If they think as highly of him as they probably do, he'll get locked up at some point. I don't know when. But yeah, Roki Sasaki, obvious answer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have so much money to spend, it seems, and have spent so much already on so many players. What's another couple $100 million on one guy? Money, it's just a drip in the bucket. Drip in the ocean. Drop in the ocean? What's that saying? But yeah, a lot of other young guys. No, Andy Pages, maybe. He'd have to have like Jackson Merrill type success of just balling out and being that good young outfielder. Maybe he's 24. He could be a guy. Maybe it just depends. A lot of this is performance based for a lot of these guys, especially when you're the Dodgers, because do we want to spend the money on the guys we already have, or can we just spend that money in the off season and get somebody even better that helps us now and for the next couple of years, and we can trade that guy to get us something else who also helps us for several years, and then we lock that guy up. But yeah, Roki Sasaki, obvious answer, I figure, for the Dodgers, and it's just a matter of time. It'll happen at some point. But Dodgers don't really need much help in other categories. But that moves us over to the San Francisco Giants, who, good old Giants, off to not a terrible start to the season. Coming into Wednesday's game, they are 5-1 on the year, so not too shabby. Pitching has gotten it done for them. Also getting some timely offense. Lamont Wade Jr.'s had some power hits. Wilmer Flores, actually, I believe, and Heliot Ramos. So they're off to nice hot starts and everything. But who could the Giants conceivably end up locking up? And in the Buster Posey era, this is kind of them figuring out what they want to do. They locked up Matt Chapman to an extension before, and then Willie Adames signed that contract. They've got Jung-Ho Lee that they had signed. He's under contract through 2029. Logan Webb, they've got him signed through 2028. But this is the hard part for the Giants, because you look around and looking through the guys, and if we're basing this on just a guy to extend, we could see them pull something like a couple of teams have done, that the Red Sox are doing now with Christian Campbell, or that the Brewers have done with some young guys even before they make their MLB debut. Bryce Eldridge would be that guy. If they feel like he's ready and when he's ready and primed, and that he's going to be a long-term solution, and they're confident in that, that's probably when they could sign him to one of those big young extensions that keeps him there with the Giants for many years to come. Yeah, probably could do that. And a nice team-friendly deal for a first baseman. But we'll have to see. But if we're going for guys that have already played, that are on the team now, and moving forward, look at these rosters. Patrick Bailey seems like a guy that they could do this with. And especially seems like maybe a Buster Posey move to understand how important a catcher is for the team. And Patrick Bailey, a first-round pick, back in 2013, or back in 2020, he was a first-round pick, 13th overall back in 2020. But switching catcher that has really turned in some good performance since being called up, taking over as that primary guy back in 23. That's a guy that you could see of, okay, here's this catcher that we like, that's going to be a staple for us for the years to come. He's 26 years old this season. Yeah, he's off to a bit of a slow start. He's not a lot of power in the bat. Maybe 10 home runs is that upside for him, average. But if Buster Posey feels like this is a guy that's going to help lead this team behind the dish and our pitching rotation for years to come, yeah, we could extend him to a nice, decent little deal. A 5, maybe 6-year deal. Take him through his age 32 season or so. You hope over that time that's locked up a key position that's hard to fill for a lot of teams. Hard to find a good catcher that can provide some offensive capabilities, but also be good defensively. Patrick Bailey fills that spot for him. Buster Posey could see that as former catcher himself with the Giants. That would play a key role for them during their playoff, their World Series championships. It seems like a no-brainer that the catcher would then extend his current catcher. So Patrick Bailey probably would be one for me with the Giants, of how crucial a catcher is to a team, especially a good one. Knowing that first round pick for them, pretty good. Heliot Ramos would be that other option for him. 25 years old. You're probably not going to go a huge deal like they do for Jackson Merrill, but a 6-7 year deal that could probably be pretty conceivable. Again, takes him through age 32, 33 season. That totally could be conceivable for him. And work out that money where, these aren't players necessarily where you're going to be maybe have to pay them a ton. They'll still pay, but in the mid, like $15 to $20 million into those seasons, yeah, pretty simple to do that. They're both about ready. Bailey's going into arbitration after this season, so 2026 is his first year of arbitration. Heliot Ramos is an arbitration eligible till the 2027 season. So after 2026. So yeah, there's two guys where pretty understandable or pretty reasonable where you could lock those guys up, buy out those arbitration years, maybe a year or two of free agency. That could go a long way for the Giants as they try to build up a new identity, a new core, because they have a lot of old guys coming off the roster here in these couple years. Wilmer Flores coming off the roster. Luke Trevino out in that bullpen, but yet Mike Yastrzemski, Lamont Wade Jr. There's going to be openings. So Bryce Eldridge, Heliot Ramos, Patrick Bailey, prime candidates to get those extensions from the Giants, or they can just come out of nowhere and sign up a couple of their pitchers to some decent extensions over the years. But remains to be seen. It's trying to figure out who's going to stick in that rotation for the coming years. So that's the Giants, 3 prime candidates. And that brings us up to the good old classic Colorado Rockies, who are no strangers to extensions. Good extensions, maybe. So we'll they're coming in. They've obviously money has been down, and they are hampered by the albatross that is the Chris Bryant contract. They're paying him $27 million a year through 2028. Kyle Freeland's under contract through 26, at least. Ryan McMahon is signed through 2027. You've got Senzatella through 26. Really, the only guy that they've extended beyond that is Ezekiel Tovar. They signed him to that 7-year, $63.5 million contract back in 2024, which does feel like a steal if he can continue to develop. He signed through 2030 with a club option for 2031, where he would earn $23 million. But a nice team-friendly contract, really, for Ezekiel Tovar to take him through those seasons. That can kind of be the model that you look for. You lock up a young star at shortstop. It's just hard to tell right now because despite this team being focused on we need to rebuild and prospects and youth, you look at their roster now and their payroll, a lot of these guys are not really part of the future of these players with guaranteed salaries. You have one guy under the age of 29, and that's Ezekiel Tovar for this season. Beyond that, you've got some arbitration players. Austin Gomber's going to be off the roster. He's a free agent after this year. Mickey Moniak, who they signed, he's under team control for 2 more years because this year was his first year of arbitration. We got Jimmy Herget, who's under contract for a couple years. Lucas Gilbreth, as well as arbitration eligible through 27. Ryan Feltner, he's through 2028, but he's 28 years old. All these guys are over the age of 25. If I had to pick somebody on this Rockies roster right now, right this instance, to sign to an extension, it would likely be Brenton Doyle. However, there is the caveat, it would mostly just be to buy out his arbitration years, maybe a year of free agency. Because this next year, after the season, will be his first year of arbitration. I believe he's like a Super 2 type player. So he's got those 4 years of arbitration. And Mickey Moniak is 26 years old, as Wild the Innocent. Mickey is he turns 27 this year pretty soon. So this is age 27 season. So it's not a young buck, but roughly around 27 this season. Pretty much the same age as Brenton Doyle, which pretty interesting. But Doyle, I think his defensive capabilities are enough to warrant an extension of some kind. I feel like the Rockies, though, would be hesitant to hand out an extension because it's still, perhaps there's maybe still some insurity on their part of what he can do offensively. We've had 2 different seasons of Brenton Doyle offensively. If he can repeat again what he did last season and improve upon it, then, yeah, there can be the conversations because he's a key piece of this lineup, this core group. But who knows? Because there's such a question mark of what type of offensive player is he consistently. And so maybe there's some hesitancy where then, maybe not until after the season, depending on how the season goes, they look at, okay, well, we're looking at all of our roster options. Maybe we do want Brenton Doyle. We feel like he's our best center field option on this roster, and we can just move forward with him. He's got the Gold Gloves. We feel capable. We feel confident in him. The problem with that is then it would require so many other moves because they have so many other outfielders just in the mix. Now, center fielders, maybe Cole Carrig, maybe Benny Montgomery. Those are probably the 2 competing for that kind of center field spotlight in the future. And they're really confident. In both of them, they really like Cole Carrig. But there's such an outfield logjam of guys at all three positions. Where they would have to be willing to take some swings of moving maybe some of those other guys if they extend Brenton Doyle. Well, we have all these guys. We don't need someone. We like Colt Carrick, but we got to find a place to put him. Well, we'll have to trade so-and-so in right field or a mixture of things. But Doyle seems like he'd be that top candidate here just because of what he's done for the team and playing defensively in center field at Coors Field. It's hard to find. He's probably the best defensive center fielder in Rockies history. Probably best outfielder overall defensively in Rockies history. The bat's still coming along. There's still a long way to go. He's not a finished product. And I think this would be a crucial season. But if you do an extension to him, for him, it's got to be for the right price. You can't go wild like you did with a Ryan McMahon, where he gets locked up for maybe a little too much money that it then hinders you in some other aspects and you get tied up with him. And that's that question of Jackson Merrill's 21. With Doyle, yeah, you're not going a 9-year extension. It's going to be maybe a little bit more moderate. At least that's what I would do. 3, 4, 5 years tops of an extension for Brenton Doyle. Again, probably just to buy out those arbitration years before he gets too expensive in arbitration. Now, Doyle can be then perfectly confident of no, I'm not going to do that because I'll get more money through arbitration somewhere or whatever. But that's the gamble that you take. So it's a 50-50 for me of how reasonable it would be to extend Doyle. Good player. Is he worth a notable extension from this team at his age and where they are as an organization? I don't know. Probably not, because you don't want to get locked into something and then, the bat just disappears for him. I don't know. It's a gamble with Brenton Doyle. Unlike a Tovar who's young enough and, he showed really good signs there young age, just like Jackson Merrill, really young, already showing the goods. Okay, you can confidently hold on to that through his 20s. Now, do we want to sign a Brenton Doyle to a late 20s extension? I don't know. Like I was saying, there's already so much outfield depth as is in the organization and the prospects. Do you want to logjam yourself even more by extending Doyle? If you're wise, no. But again, this is the Rockies we're talking about, so who knows what they'll do. I never thought they'd trade Nolan Jones for a random utility infielder, but here we are. Brenton Doyle probably would be that top candidate. Other than that, I'd have to wait to see what other guys do, like Chase Dolander. He would probably be the one if he comes up and he's just dealing. He's the one I could see probably the nearest in the future. When he comes up and he just dominates the season, they're like, all right, we're going to lock him down for several years. That's probably the extension I would look for, or that would I look towards. But even then, as we've seen with some of the other pitchers they've extended, it's a gamble with any extension for Colorado. So that's why, and luckily that Tovar one looks like it'll age well, at least, hopefully, throughout the years. But a lot of their other ones in the recent years by Bill Schmidt, and it has not been it. It has not worked. But wild stuff. But yeah, there's stuff. But the Rockies have a lot of other problems on their plate before they should even be fully thinking about that or worrying about extending guys. They should just worry about figuring out what players are going to be there for the future and play a role and what they want to do for the future of who's going to be the manager and all this stuff. Figure that out. Get your ducks in a row before you're like, oh yeah, Brenton Doyle is the answer for the future. Well, yeah, he is in the near future, but what about 2-3 years from now? Who knows? He could absolutely fall off a cliff and not figure out how to hit the ball. Who knows? But there's a lot of other problems. But anyways, that'll do it here on this edition of Best of the West, and appreciate folks tuning in, especially tuning in here late in the winding minutes of this. Since it's just me, we're not going to go an hour and a half like we did last week because Kenneth isn't here. But before we go, looking one quick here, looking at the Braves and Dodgers game. Back to our question. It's the end of the sixth inning. They're heading into the seventh. Braves still up 5-3, heading into the seventh inning. Can the Dodgers hold on to it? Or can the Braves hold on to it and hand the Dodgers their first loss of the year? We'll see. We shall see. But fortunately, we won't see on this episode. So look to the future, and we'll see here. And the reason I won't talk about Bud Black is just that's not the topic of this episode right now. We'll definitely touch on Bud plenty throughout the season. But we'll see. But not tonight. But plenty of conversation on other episodes because I was just talking about extensions tonight. But it'll definitely be a conversation for the future because Bill Schmidt did have some comments of talking about how long Bud Black will be the manager, and honestly, we have no idea. It's an open invitation, and I'll talk about that with Kenneth in the future. But appreciate folks tuning in, and yes, while the Dodgers are technically human, we can hope so. Either that or they're the $6 million man, and the bionic man just go. I need to get that sound effect. But we'll see. But until next time, you can find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmins or over on Blue Sky stimmins13.bsky.social. You can find me writing over at purpleroad.com or writing for ffsn.com. That's fansfirstsportsnetwork.com. And find me over doing other podcasts like Rocky Mountain Rooftop, talking all kinds of stuff over there. Yes, can we rebuild them? Who knows? We do not know, Wild. But thanks for hopping in, Wild, RP, Isaac, Call Me Astro, Norm, Ryan. Appreciate folks tuning in. You can find us next week at 7:30 on Wednesday. Kenneth will be back. Follow us, Blake Street Banner, on social media and over on YouTube. They've also got a part series talking about the most significant events notable events in Coors Field history. Find that over at BlakeStreetBanner.com and follow them on social medias. And you can find this episode on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting platform later in the week. But until next time, I'm Skyler Timmins. This has been Best of the West. And remember, the best is yet to come.